so it's basically been a running joke on this channel at this point for the last 3 months that we were talking about the Santa Claus's miniseries they put out around Christmas, or actually it might have been in November, actually. And I started reviewing it, and I got halfway through episodes 1 through 3, and then I just stopped because I didn't care. And it's like I just finished. We're talking about episode 4 right now because I just finished watching episode 4, and it's mid-March. I watched and reviewed episode 3 before Christmas, like a couple of days before Christmas or something. So it's so yeah, we're just this. There's no passion in this. We're just doing this to finish it. That's all it is. So if you were like really passionate about this series, um, okay. But yeah, we're basically just doing this as technicality sort of thing. So yeah, episode 4 has the Calvins where we left them, the clauses where we left them. Back, on Earth, or whatever you want to call it. Is the North Pole Earth? I don't know. But they're back in the real world, the normal world. And they look normal. Obviously Scott's, slimmed down, and everybody's trying to get used to real world things again. The kids have never experienced this kind of thing before. The son's really psyched about it. The daughter's really not. And, predictable jokes abound, all while Kal Penn is taking over as Santa now, and apparently he's going to destroy things. At some point in this episode, he pretty much became a villain, I guess. He's kind of like a human version of when we had the big toys Santa take over in the second movie. So, yeah. So the only difference now is that he wants to, for business reasons, make Christmas every single day of the year. And there is something in this episode that's touched on that I do like. The idea of discussing the importance of Christmas only being once a year, because that's what makes it so special. And if it was every day, then there'd be nothing to look forward to. It would take, everything out of it. So I can appreciate that. But, yeah, so going forward with this, them being in the real world, there's a point where they're in a coffee shop at the beginning of the episode, and they're immediately trying to get brownie points by having Tim Allen mention Buzz Lightyear. That's just kind of desperate, it feels like. But there's also, it's a very easy way for somebody to say, oh, yeah, I get that reference because he's literally Buzz Lightyear. There is a funny moment here where the barista's just had enough of his bullshit, which is kind of funny, where he's still in Santa mode, and when he orders something, it's like, just a mountain of sweets when he's just trying to order a coffee, really. But there's also stuff like they're talking about how because he hasn't been in the real world for so long, he's behind on things. So he's talking about, going to Circuit City and going to Blockbuster and stuff like that. Now that could have been Scott making a joke, but I'm assuming the joke is that Scott's just like nearly 30 years behind. But if that is the joke, I hate to be that person that like nitpicks a joke to death, but I mean, I would think if anybody is gonna be like caught up on technological evolution and like know what people are buying now, that would be Santa. You would think. Because, yeah, the elves do all the work and stuff like that, but we've seen throughout all the movies and the show that Scott knows everything about what people want and what people are buying. It's just in his head. That's the Santa power. So that just kind of seems like it was an easy joke to make because he's 30 years behind the real world. But like I said, I would think Santa's pretty clued in on the real world, but I don't know. Because that's where all the kids are, and that's where he works, but, I don't know. But we also have this thing where naturally the kids have to, integrate themselves into the real world, so we have them making friends very quickly. And I mean, you would think because the kids are coming in with different approaches, where like the son is super psyched about it and the daughter isn't, you would think it'd be like, either that's the way it would be, the son would have a great time here and the daughter would have a miserable time here. But you could also switch it to where, like, the joke that makes the most sense would be when the son gets here, he's miserable, and when the daughter gets here, it's actually her that's really psyched about everything. Um, but they just kind of, just both kids are just like, they just immediately make friends. Well, the son is more like a love interest, I guess, and the daughter makes friends immediately with horse girls. And there's not really like jokes here or anything. It's more just setting up that everybody's acting like they don't have time to hang out as a family now, which is what Scott's been looking forward to for 30 years. But that just feels like a throwaway thing. So that's just something that's wasting time and stretching this out to a mini series instead of just a throwaway, TV movie or something that it could have been. You probably could have easily fit this into a TV movie, but whatever. Um, like I said, meanwhile, Calpen, in his business way of doing things, is destroying the spirit of Christmas. Apparently. Because I didn't even realize this till late in the episode. The episode seems to be fast forwarding through months. Like, one scene happens, and then suddenly the next scene we see is like a month later, I guess. And so Christmas is coming back around, which is what they're trying to do here. Like I said, probably didn't need to be a series if you're fast forwarding through time. But okay, so the only way they say that he's destroying the spirit of Christmas, and the elves start dusting like Thanos just snapped. But apparently this is a widespread thing. But the only thing that tells us this, apart from the elves getting dusted, is Scott and Noel are starting to get into a snowball fight with this kid, and this kid says, "Who cares about Christmas?" And it seems to come from out of nowhere. So I think we're supposed to assume that Calpen destroying the spirit of Christmas is now setting in with the children of the real world, but we get like one example of this, and we're not seeing any like there's only all the other scenes in the real world are just like in the Calvin's house, or we're at the North Pole. So I don't. Apparently, this is affecting the rest of the real world, but I don't. It's very vague. I don't know. Which means there's really nothing to care about here. Like I said, I've been talking about how I think Noel is a weird character, and I don't really like him. And he had a couple moments here. I think I was talking before. The last time I talked about this show feels so long ago. About how usually when they do find something funny or they have a funny joke, they just immediately just kill it. They just ruin it immediately. And there was a moment here. It was a weird joke anyway, but it was kind of like I almost smiled. Where they're talking about, having Christmas over and over and over again and how that ruins it. And Noel makes this comment about how, like, yeah, it's like how it's fun being tickled at first, but then if you tickle too much, you throw up. It's like, okay, I guess that's kind of funny. But then there's this weird tacked on thing to that joke where Betty says, I tickled you for 2 weeks straight once and you never threw up. And he says, oh yeah, that was a bad example. I don't fucking know. I don't know. There was one bit that I found very funny where Noel was writing a letter saying that he's leaving, and he says, pardon my French, and then he says something angrily in French. That's funny. That's, like, genuinely funny. But everything else is just getting weird and dragged out and pointless, and yeah, they're not really setting up their stakes very well here, because they're setting up their stakes, but like I said, they're fast forwarding through them, and it's really vague how everything's being affected. I don't know. I don't think villain Calpen. My brother kind of mentioned when he was here for Christmas. He kind of mentioned it in passing. It was like, oh no, spoiler, but it's like I don't care. But yeah, even so, even kind of like knowing vaguely, it is. I didn't really see it coming in the first few episodes that Calpen would turn into a villain. But now that it's happening, I really don't care. Like I said, we're just doing this for the sake of completion, so I'm just going to go ahead and end this here, and we'll go on to the last 2 episodes and see if anything worthwhile happens, but my hopes are low, so I would like to think that nobody's going to see this video anyway. I would like to think that I could literally say anything right now, and just nobody would know. But yeah, so until episode 5, which I guess I'm gonna do now just to get this rolling. I don't know. Until the next thing, I think that's it.